What's up guys, Sean here. Welcome to Blades and Fades. In today's video, I will be showing you guys some sharpening tips. But first, I'm going to show you guys what's in my pockets. In my right pocket, my main carry for today is this beautiful Hinder XM18 3.5 inch slicer grind with a working finish. It has FDE textured G10 scales. These are the scales that came with it right out of the box, and I have outfitted it with some beautiful blue anodized titanium hardware. This knife is a looker, that is for damn sure. And in my left pocket, my secondary carry today, which is also sort of a primary carry because this thing cuts fucking awesome, is my Spyderco Paramilitary 2. This is the Smoky Mountain Knife Works exclusive that came with the M4 blade steel and these beautiful fat carbon scales. This is the Arctic Storm pattern right here, and these are absolutely mesmerizing. And I blade swapped this with my K390 Bento Box Shop exclusive Paramilitary 2. And this is rocking a 17 degrees per side KME edge done by yours truly. And this thing, I have not been able to get this thing dull. I cut a ton of shit with this. I've gone through so much cardboard, probably hundreds of feet, and this is still most likely my sharpest knife. This K390 is extremely impressive stuff. And if you have a chance to get your hands on some, I highly recommend it. You will not regret checking out some K390. It is some really good shit. So, if you guys want to be able to get some beautiful edges like these, I'm going to teach you how. First off, I want to show you an example of a very well done edge. This is my XM18 3.5 inch harpoon spanto, and it is also modified or personalized, as you can see. This has a beautiful 20 degree per side edge, also done with the KME. And if you take a look right here, this knife has a full finger choil, whereas to this one does not have a finger choil. And one big thing when it comes to sharpening that I'm going to be talking about is protecting your plunge grind. Your plunge grind separates, where your edge is going to be away from the tang of the blade where it's going to get thicker. So it's just where the blade starts to plunge down from the tang, as you're coming out towards the tip. So because this has a full finger choil, there's not going to be really any chance of me running into this plunge grind and mucking up my blade. Whereas with this one, if I come just a hair too far past this point right here, I'm going to be going into that plunge grind right away. So this is a better shot. You can see right here where that plunge is, where you can see where it slopes down. And if the stone comes anywhere past this point right here, you're going to start scratching up your plunge grind, and you don't want to do that. Now if you do, it's not the end of the world. However, it looks a whole lot better if you avoid it, and you can avoid it very easily. All you have to do is take a zip tie, and you can try this, try different sizes and find what's going to work for your specific blade that you are sharpening. And I'm going to take it. So all you have to do is put it right there and tighten it down really tight, and then you have a little bumper so that your stone cannot go past that point. And you won't hit the plunge grind, you won't hit your scale, you won't hit your flipper tab, you won't hit anything that you're not supposed to hit. You will only be sharpening the blade like you are intending to do. So now that I showed you that, I'm going to show you an example of a knife where I did not take the time to protect the plunge grind, and unfortunately I hit it. So get this to focus in here, and if you take a look at the plunge grind on this guy, you can see I ran straight up it. Now it isn't too bad because I realized it kind of early, and also this knife is a user. I don't plan on ever selling it, so I wasn't really being careful in the first place. But in hindsight, I definitely would have rather taken the extra second to throw a zip tie on here and protect that plunge grind, just so it looked that extra little bit nicer and more professional, more perfect, especially with my OCD. So not a big deal, but it's not something we want to be doing. And when you do happen to hit the plunge grind, we call that a smile, because if you look at it, it looks like your edge is smiling at you. Know what I mean? So I'm gonna throw a couple more quick examples up on the screen right now. Here is an example of one where I hit the plunge grind pretty bad. This was one of the first knives that I've ever sharpened back several years ago when I was first learning. I started off on a bench stone and I just marked out my edge and went to it, went at it. And it took me, a little bit to get it down. So I have a good bit of steel removed from this blade. However, it is still perfectly fine. It's still perfectly functional. Cuts great, works great. It might not look the prettiest, but it still functions 100% fine. Protecting your plunge grind is pretty much only cosmetic. So some of you might not care, but if you're a more advanced sharpener and you want to consider getting into sharpening other people's knives, maybe starting a side business, protecting the knives is something you will want to do with every knife, no exceptions, because no matter how good you are, when you least expect it is when something will happen. One of my buddies, he sent me a couple really nice knives to show on the channel, and he asked if I would sharpen them for him, and I did, and I actually taped up his handles, I taped up the blade, I taped up the plunge grind, but this was before I found out about the zip tie trick, and I had a couple layers of tape, but that couple layers of tape is not going to be enough to stop a diamond stone from ripping right through and marking up that plunge grind, creating a big smile. Tape isn't going to do the job. A nice thick zip tie is going to protect it every time. So, just do it. Can't go wrong. It's a really, really good little trick, and I do it with every knife I sharpen now. The next tip is going to be, how do you protect your blade when you are clamping a knife in your sharpener? I use the KME, so if I'm going to clamp this in here, press that. Okay, when you clamping your knife, If you go back past your rubber pad that's in here onto this metal, you're gonna start scratching up your beautiful blade finish, and you don't want to do that. Get yourself some painter's tape or masking tape, and we're just gonna rip off a small piece, couple inches, just a little bit shorter than the blade length, because we do not need to protect necessarily the whole blade, because the clamp is only going to cover maybe a 1 to 2 inch section of the blade. And you also don't want the tape to come down over the tip, but that's all right. We can disregard that for right now. And see, you just fold it over. You want to do only one layer, and you want to have it folded over like this, because if you start doubling up layers and stuff, your knife is going to be twisting around, because it's not going to be able to be clamped in securely due to the extra thickness of the tape, which is not a hard surface. So it's going to allow your knife to twist around. And also, if you don't have the exact same thickness on each side of the blade, then your blade might be clamped in a little bit angled down or a little bit angled up, and that will cause you to get an uneven bevel when you are sharpening. So make sure, if you are going to protect the blade, only one layer of tape, one piece, fold it over, and then when you get down here, what I do, I just rip it, get it away from the edge. So just like that, we are nice and clear from the edge. You can go ahead and clamp this bad boy in. And let's see. When I sharpen this knife, I clamp it about right there. You want to be kind of towards the center of the blade usually. And I do like an imaginary line from the tip to the heel. You want that imaginary line to be parallel with the front of your clamp, usually. So I'm going to pinch that tight, and I'm going to go ahead and tighten this down. Okay, kind of eyeball it. Doesn't have to be exactly parallel, but you want it to be close. So more importantly than it being parallel is you want it to be securely clamped. You don't want this to be able to twist up and down at all when you're sharpening, or that's going to cause inconsistencies in your sharpening or in your edge, and your knife is not going to be as sharp as it possibly could be. And yeah, you're defeating the purpose. So now that we have our knife clamped in here nice and tight, we are ready to go. The next thing you want to do is go ahead and mark your edge out with a Sharpie. This is essential. Now, if you want to take your protection a step further, you can go ahead and tape up your handle scale with the masking tape as well. So what I like to do, if I'm taping up my handle, I'm going to go ahead and get a much larger piece of tape, and I'll start up by the zip tie. I recommend always using the zip tie. Really, whether you think you need it or not, it is a 100% fail-proof, sure way to keep your plunge grind protected and make sure you're not hitting anything you don't want to hit with the stone. So it's a win-win. You can't lose by protecting your knife. So just like that, now I have protection all along here. So say I'm sharpening my knife, All right, and I need to stop for a second. If I let go, then the stone might slide off and hit something, but I could just sit it off to the side like so now that I have this taped off. And you know, ideally, if you really want to protect it, you would continue for the whole handle, and then you can just sit your stone there, walk away, take care of whatever you need to do, and come back to it. So that is going to be my tips today on protecting your knife while sharpening. Hope this was helpful to you guys and hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, stay tuned, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.